Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of The Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, February 10th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 488 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. It is officially the 2025 off season, as the Eagles took home the Lombardi last night in Super Bowl 59, and the 2024 season is officially in the books. And you know what that means? It's time for the Jets to shine. Off-season champions once again. Coming up here, we will see. Today, I wanted to get into a couple different things on the podcast. I wanted to start off with the likelihood and the possibility of Tyrod Taylor being the starter in 2025, and I also wanted to take a look at two new coaching staff additions for Aaron Glenn that he has made over the last couple days, so we will discuss those as well. Before we begin, though, wanted to get into our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. If you want to get in on any of the sports betting action, use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek. If you're looking for tickets in the best of sports and entertainment, check out SeatGeek. And if it's your first time using SeatGeek, use promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase and get yourself out to some awesome events. If you need a ticket, SeatGeek has it. Check them out. Also, our friends over at Huga House, they've just released a few new arrival hats along with new sweatshirts. Both are going very quickly. So if you want any of the awesome Huga House apparel, use my promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase. And when you use that promo code, you'll also get 30% off your second purchase with that code BUBS. So check them out and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. Appreciate those of you tuning in to episode 488 here. As always, for those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Thank you to those of you, as always, tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms where the show can be found, as always. So here we go. Another day, another pod. I guess you want to say this is the first post Aaron Rodgers pod. Still waiting for the official word from the Jets. Feels like something will come out within the coming days on what Rodgers' future will be, not only with the Jets, but with the NFL. Post-Jets, what the Jets plan on doing. We might kind of get a little bit more pieces to that puzzle coming up in the coming days. So still a lot to unpack here as the offseason across the NFL is really just taking place here today after Super Bowl 59 last night with the dust settling there. But I want to get into Tyrod Taylor here. Look, it's February 10th. There is still a lot that needs to happen. There is still a lot that needs to take place. There is still a lot of things that can change, right? Over the next month going into free agency, there's going to be a lot of different names thrown out there. There's going to be a lot of different possible both trade, free agency options for the Jets to look into at quarterback. And then, of course, with the draft, right? Do the Jets take a quarterback this year, developmental pick? Do they trade up from 7 and try and take somebody? Where do the Jets stand there? And then, of course, throughout the next year, you also have the whole 2026 conversation. So this whole quarterback thing, mainly for 2025, this whole discussion is really just beginning. But as of right now, as we sit here Monday, February 10th, just about 24 hours post Aaron Rodgers, Jay Glazer report that the two sides are moving on, it feels like if you had to name an early front runner to be under center in week 1, at home, on the road, wherever that may be, whoever that might be against, it's probably got to be Tyrod Taylor at this current moment. And I want to read you just two kind of pieces here from Connor Hughes and Zach Rosenblatt. Number one from Connor Hughes. This states there is an immense amount of respect for Taylor within the Jets locker room. He actually received some votes for captain this year. He can still play too. While he didn't see the field much last year, he went 2-3 in 5 starts with the Giants in 2023. That team was awful, yet Taylor completed 64.4% of his passes for 1,341 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He's an aggressive quarterback who loves to attack a defense deep. That was an article Connor Hughes wrote earlier today on some quarterback options for the Jets. This was also Zach Rosenblatt yesterday. As of this moment, I consider Tyrod Taylor the leader in the clubhouse to be the Jets quarterback, but they will explore all options, not an especially agent or appetizing free agency or draft class at QB, though perhaps someone surprising will break free. So there's multiple angles to this. And that last part, the Zach Rosenblatt tweet, is very, very true. There is always somebody in the free agent market or mostly the draft where this applies to, where a guy's going to skyrocket up draft boards. As we sit here in February, it feels like that guy is Jackson Dart, and we'll take a deeper dive into Dart and all the draft stuff here really in the coming weeks as we get closer and closer to the draft and as the offseason and kind of the whole coaching staff and the Rodgers stuff really kind of settles here and you can focus on the rest of the roster at this point. We'll dive a lot more into the quarterbacks and the Jets' potential draft options, but there is still going to be a lot of changes, right? Dart might skyrocket up boards. You might get a free agency. You might get a trade option that pops up out of the middle of nowhere for the Jets that right now seems unrealistic when in a couple weeks it might feel a lot more realistic. But I think there is a lot to be said about Tyrod Taylor being a front runner just in those two things about the fact that he's already here, right? Tyrod Taylor was brought in on a 2-year contract last season. Brought in on a 2-year deal, already under contract, has already been with the team for a full season, clearly well respected around the locker room, is a veteran, has been a stopgap in previous places, and like I've said, only on that 1-year deal, boom, at the end of this season, he's out anyway, and then you figure out what you're doing in 2026. And I think when you look at Tyrod Taylor in a perfect world, now, he was much younger, but in a perfect world, we saw Tyrod Taylor in 2017 with a first-time defensive coordinator in Sean McDermott end a Bills playoff streak that was 18 years. And 2018, the Bills, that draft, they traded up for Josh Allen, and then they found their long-term plan. In a perfect world, that's what the Jets do, because I still want to win. And that's part of the reason now why I was open to Rodgers still coming back, because I still want to compete and win in 2025. I don't want to be sitting here next year talking about 15 years of no playoffs. The way you build a culture, the way you establish a culture is by winning, not by saying, oh, year 1, we get a pass, let's win 4 games, and then put all the pressure on year 2 with a rookie quarterback when history tells us the Jets are probably going to swing and miss, because that's all they've done at that position. So in a perfect world, you get Tyrod for this season, staying healthy, playing at a competent level. You fix the defense. You get the run game going in this system and Tanner Engstrand where you can fix the holes on this offense, and you're able to remain competitive and then figure out your option in 2026. That's just right now what seems most realistic because he's already under contract. And I could also see a world, too, where the Jets bring in another veteran and draft a rookie and kind of have a 3-way competition, or open up the door for Travis, right? Have your Tyrod against, let's just say, a Jameis Winston or somebody like that. Tyrod Winston, maybe you throw hypothetically Jackson Dart. And that's kind of your competition. And Travis, who, let's be honest, I think right now, anything you get out of Jordan Travis is a bonus at this point. The guy, unfortunately, last year wasn't even healthy enough to get on the field for a practice. I think it's a little crazy for Jet fans to already start talking about Jordan Travis being the future quarterback. Let's get the guy out there for a practice with the team first. One practice first before we start talking about him being a future option, let alone just 2025 starter. Forget future. Let's just get to 2025 first with him staying healthy and progressing, because there was a clear setback last season, and we still don't really know the full extent of the setback and where he stands right now and where he's going to stand or projects going into the offseason workouts and going into training camp. We have no clue at this current moment. But I think those two pieces, I think when you look at, there's clear respect for Tyrod in the locker room. He's been in this position before as a stopgap. He's already under contract. I think it's pretty clear to say he's probably the front runner. He's probably the favorite right now to become the Jets quarterback in 2025, post Aaron Rodgers. And you'd pair him with a rookie or some sort of veteran and kind of compete in camp and figure it out that way. And maybe you don't even bring another veteran. Maybe it's Tyrod, rookie, and you roll with Tyrod. The biggest thing with Tyrod is the injuries. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where 3 games in next year, Tyrod's got an injury, and then you have to throw out your rookie who, in a perfect world, could just sit for a year. Now, all of a sudden, 3 games in, he's got to go out there and be thrown into a heat of a season early on in his career, which is why maybe you bring another veteran so he can kind of combat that. Where if Tyrod would to go down, you bring another veteran, and it's kind of a shield for that rookie where he can just fully sit. It's complicated. There's a lot of different ways you can go. I also just think, and we'll talk more about this at length in future episodes. I also just think you look at the Jets quarterback options, not many, they're not very pleasing, first of all. But like Justin Fields, I would take him. I would be on board with that. I just think the Jets are going to probably get outbid for him. I think there's going to be a higher bidder for Justin Fields than the Jets. I don't know if the Jets would be willing to go to like the 15 million mark, or even can do that with the whole dead cap with Rodgers, also having to allocate money elsewhere. You can always manipulate the cap, but I don't know if the Jets would be willing to do that when you already have Tyrod and the potential of drafting a rookie, when you could probably just get a cheaper option in a Winston or somebody like that. So we'll see what happens. But I think right now you would have to throw Tyrod probably in as the favorite at this current moment. And there'll be a lot of other names brought up. But I don't think you should be surprised at all if Tyrod Taylor's out there in 2025, week 1. And look, he's older. He is. I think Tyrod is probably older than a lot of people think. I think a lot of people kind of forget about the fact that he's actually been in the NFL since 2011. He's going to be 36. I think a lot of people think of Tyrod as a 30, 31-year-old. He's 36 years old, so he's up there. But so are a lot of these other guys, other than a few of them. But you look at some of these other guys. I mean, you want to go to the Kirk Cousins route? Heck no. Russell Wilson, all those guys, they're all getting up in age. That's typically what you get in a 1-year stopgap. So that's the Tyrod Taylor stuff. Now, I want to move on to some coaching additions that the New York Jets have made over the last couple of days. We'll start here. The New York Jets have found a new cornerbacks coach in Dre Bly. Another former coach, or another former player rather, added to Aaron Glenn's coaching staff. Won a Super Bowl, 2-time Pro Bowler, so had a lot of success during his time in the NFL. And is a guy that has had some coaching experience, has a connection with Aaron Glenn, was the cornerbacks coach in North Carolina, where he actually played college ball at from 2019 to 2022. And then most recently, 2023, his last coaching position only coaching position in the NFL came with the Lions under Aaron Glenn's staff in 2023. Fast forward a year later, he was with Charlotte this past season as a defensive analyst. So has that connection with Glenn from the Lions in 2023. Like I mentioned, played with the Rams, Lions, Broncos, the Niners. So another former player to this defensive staff gets an opportunity to work with a cornerback room that includes Michael Carter, that includes Sauce Gardner. Really interested to see just how this coaching staff in general, what they do with Sauce, because I really think Sauce is a guy that can benefit big time from a guy like an Aaron Glenn, and you even want to throw in a Steve Wilkes, you want to throw in a Dre Bly, all three of those guys combined, just because of the way that the Glenn and those guys run their defense. It's a lot more man coverage. Sauce does well in man. He's been a top 2 man coverage corner in the NFL since entering the league. And I also think you look at Glenn's ball hawking ability. He's a guy that was able to pick up interceptions. What is he? I think I wrote an article on this. I think tied for 4th all time on the Jets in interceptions. Had a big 6 interception season while he was here. Had a knack for actually getting pick sixes. I think somewhere around tied for 20th in the NFL in pick sixes. Not that interceptions are the end all be all, but one of the knocks on Sauce Gardner's game has been his inability to get interceptions, and some of the easy ones. I mean, he's dropped some easy picks. I mean, you go back to this year to the London game in Minnesota. Should have picked that ball off in the end zone. Was right in his chest, and he couldn't grab it. So very interested to see how Sauce benefits from these guys. And the reason I bring up Sauce is I do want to bring a clip into this from Sauce Gardner. Actually met with the Jets coaching staff, and he even mentioned Dre Bly getting the coaching job. This was Sauce a couple days ago.
Now I'm super excited. You know, a lot of people don't know. I went into the facility like 3-4 days ago. I got to meet all the coaches. You know, Coach Harris, Coach Bly, who's going to be the corner coach. You know, AG, Steve Wilkes, bro. I'm so excited. I'm ready to get out there on the field now, man. Just spent the most time with Coach Wilkes. You know, we talk defense and his scheme, and I really love it. You know, and I think the rest of the guys gonna love it as well. You know, AG, you know, just his leadership. You know, his master plan. You know, I feel like he's putting us in the right place because you know, there ain't no such thing as a superhero. Like, you know, he's not just gonna change it all himself. We got to do our part. So, you know, I feel like he's putting us in the right position to do that.
So there was Sauce and the coaching staff also at that point hinted on the Dre Bly hiring. Good to see Sauce actually travel to the facility and met with his staff. And he's a guy I think could benefit. Coming off of a down year for his standards, hopefully can benefit from some of these new additions. Another coach here added to the staff, or not really a positional coach, but the Jets found a new game management coach. Aaron Glenn's hiring John Berger. I worked for the Giants from 1987 to 2021, so a guy with a very long wealth of experience in the NFL. He worked with the Giants in a variety of different analytical roles. So stays in New York, stays in this New York market. Since that point with the Giants, he's worked with the NFL over the last couple seasons. In one of those roles, he was the vice president of replay. So been around the NFL forever, since the 80s. This is a hire that is going to kind of go under the wayside and not mean a whole lot right now, but I will just say this. There is a lot of things that the Jets need to fix, and a lot of this, too, is, I think, just on coaching and competence and common sense. But the Jets' game management, whether it's clock management, whatever it was, clock management, decision-making, late game, like there's so many use of timeouts. There's been so many during the Robert Saleh and even Jeff Ulbrich himself, so many not mind-numbing decisions using timeouts and late game situations and so much. And they actually had a coach for it. What, Dan Shamish or Shamash, they called Shamish, who was the kind of the game management coach for Robert Saleh. And he was the one in his headset talking to him what to do. That was an underrated, like, horrible piece of the Jets coaching staff. We talk all about, how bad, slow starts and, the penalties and all this stuff. But some of the things that killed the Jets was misusing timeouts, late game situations, end of half situations. I mean, so many mismanagement of the little things from a game management perspective. So hopefully a guy that can come in here and clean some of that stuff up. And a lot of it falls on Aaron Glenn's plate. He's got to be the one that in that moment's making the decision. But all week long, you got to go through these different scenarios, figure out what you're going to do, because the game management-wise, Jets were incompetent. I mean, most recently, the one that pops up most recently with Olbrich. You go back to that Jacksonville Jaguars game this year, letting Breece Hall score when you could have just let the clock run down and run it, and then you gave, the Jaguars a minute, whatever, and I think a timeout or whatever to go down and still win it when you could have just ran the clock down and basically kicked the field goal and give them about 15, 20 seconds with no timeouts. I mean, it was so terrible. And the Jets ended up winning that game because Mac Jones and the Jaguars are incompetent. But if you were facing any competent team, you would have probably lost. So this is a hire that not many people are talking about, not many people probably even know, but it's an important hire because that's one of the issues. You talk about winning games and the things that the Jets like are death by 1,000 paper cuts. One of those paper cuts has been the incompetent management during games. Right? Talk about the penalties, talk about all that other stuff. Clock management has been a disaster for the Jets. Disaster. Use of timeout, especially under Saleh. Mess. That needs to be better under Glenn. So we'll see how it all plays out. You look at the Jets coaching staff now, and you're to 6 coaches on offense, 4 coaches on defense, and then Chris Harris on 5 coaches on defense, 6 on offense, and then Chris Banjo is your special teams coach, not Chris Harris. Apologize. Chris Banjo is your special teams guy. So you look at this Jets coaching staff, you break it down up to 12 guys now, 6 on offense, 5 defensive coaches, and your special teams coach. You also throw the game management coach. So 14 coaches now added to Glenn's staff, or rather 13 coaches now added to Glenn's staff, 14 including Glenn himself. You look at the defense side of the football: Wilkes, Eric Washington, Aaron Curry, Dre Bly, Chris Harris. So really like how this defensive staff has come along. A lot of former players and a good amount of experience with Wilkes and Eric Washington. We'd still like to see a little bit more on offense. So we'll see how that continues to develop. So that'll do it for another episode. Just wanted to come on here, get a video up here on a Monday, talk some Tyrod, talk some of the latest coaching staff hires. Let me know what you think in the comments section below on where things stand with the Jets. Your thoughts on Tyrod, possibly 2025, and then some of your thoughts on the latest coaching staff hires as well. We will talk to you guys soon. We'll have a lot more content coming your way. Until next time, Jets, Jets.